This series is being hosted by the Graduate Center. The Graduate Center is an entity within the Graduate College that provides resources for graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, university community, and the community at large. So we try to cover all bases. And it's also being sponsored in part by the Office for Research and Discovery and the School of Mind, Brain, and Behavior. So we have a whole series, as you may have heard, and there are handouts on that series, so you can mark your calendars for the dates in the future. And the reason we wanted to do this series is that, first of all, thinking about graduate students, but really all of us are often under a lot of stress in our lives, and we're trying to think of ways that we can come up with good ways of living and to have the most productive and happy lives that we can. So that's our goal. I'm really pleased that Dr. Ann Baldwin is our first speaker of this series. She's an incredible person, and I want to give you a little bit of background about her. She is a professor of practice in physiology here at the university. She's also the director of mind-body science, which I'm sure she'll be telling you a little more about. She has a bachelor's in physics from the University of Bristol in the UK, and a master's in radiation physics from the University of London in the UK, and then also a PhD in physiology from Imperial College from the University of London as well. And she's got an interesting story. She spent a lot of her research career dedicated to investigating atherosclerosis and how inflammation affects certain parts of vascular physiology, research that involved the use of rats. All went well until she discovered she had a change in location where her rats went from a very quiet environment to a noisy and chaotic environment. And she found that they had inflammation in their gut due to this stress. This turned her career to looking at the effects of stress on humans and how to reduce that. So that was really a changing point in her life. So she has published over 80 articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals. She served on National Institutes of Health review panels, and she's done all those things that good scientists do. She's also a Reiki master, and she teaches biofeedback. By wearing those two hats, the hat of scientist and of healer, Dr. Baldwin hopes to bridge the gap between energy healing and quantitative scientific inquiry. So I'm really delighted to present to you Dr. Ann Baldwin.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for coming, and I hope that this evening I will be able to give you some tools to help you reduce stress, to improve your relationships, and to improve your performance. So how many of you suffer from stress? Okay, everybody. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today was developed by the Institute of HeartMath, and you can go online, heartmath.org or heartmath.com, to find out more about them. The reason that I decided to talk a lot about what they're doing and what they have developed is because I have found that using their programs and their devices with my clients is very successful. It seems to work. And they focus on the heart in reducing stress rather than the brain. So the HeartMath system is used by a variety of institutions and people. So hospitals and health professionals, they use it to make their environment more conducive to healing. The same with businesses, to make their environment less stressful, and also so that business people can improve their performance at the same time. Police, fire, and corrections, they need to learn how to reduce their stress because their jobs are extremely stressful, and they have to be able to perform at their highest in the most grueling situations. Schools, university, and non-profits, so they are interested in their students and making sure that their students can control their stress levels and do well academically. And then professional athletes and Olympic teams, obviously they're out to win, They're out to increase their performance, and it does that too. And then military and special forces. Of course, they are fraught with PTSD because of all the trauma they go through. So these kinds of programs are very useful for them too. And it's backed up by published research, and I'll be talking a little bit about the science. How many of you have science background here? Okay, maybe about half of you. So it won't be too difficult, and hopefully I'll explain it sufficiently. So you can see that they are well published in leading journals such as American Journal of Cardiology. And so today, what I want to do with you is try and give you some tools to help you increase your resilience. And we'll talk about what exactly is resilience and your energy levels. You know that feeling of being drained of energy. I can give you some tools to keep your energy levels up, which is really important if you want to remain resilient. And then thinking clearly under pressure. We all need to do that sometime as well. And problem solvings. If you can manage to keep cool, reduce your stress levels, keep in a very balanced state of mind, you'll be surprised at how solutions to problems just kind of come into your head without you even, the things that you wouldn't have thought about previously. Maybe just out of the blue, a new solution comes up. Increase your ability to maintain situational awareness. So that's the ability to be able to realize what to do in a certain situation, what is appropriate behavior with these people who you happen to be with right now. And diminish symptoms of personal and professional stress. So that's a big one there. Confusion, fatigue, and sleep disturbance, which we all suffer from sometimes. And then improve reaction times and coordination, which is very important in sport. So what is resilience? What does resilience mean to you? Anyone want to volunteer what they think resilience is?
Bouncing back.
That's what most people say, bouncing back. But according to the Institute of HeartMath, they made it a kind of wider definition of resilience that includes bouncing back. So their definition is capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. So it's not just bouncing back, it's preparing for something in advance and also adapting if things are not quite going the way you thought. That's also part of resilience. And so you can learn to build your resilience capacity and sustain your energy. And capacity is the key word here. It's how much do you have of it? And if you want to make sure that you have enough resilience, you need to keep your kind of emotional or energy batteries charged. So you have to be self-aware of when you waste emotional energy and try and stop that from happening so that at the end of the day, you still have energy left. And there are several domains of resilience. There's physical resilience. We all know what that is. The ability to go and do 100 press-ups. We don't all have that, but we can build up our physical resilience. And then emotional resilience. So kind of emotional resilience is having maybe a positive outlook, maybe being a little bit optimistic. Emotional flexibility, being able to take different emotions, just cope with the punches, if you see what I mean, roll with the punches. And self-regulation, so maybe that means taking a few seconds before you go off into an angry fit. So that's self-regulation. So that's emotional resilience. Spiritual resilience, I think that's really commitment to your values, standing up for what you really feel and believe, and also tolerance of other people's beliefs. And that can be hard sometimes, especially in our current political situation. And then mental resilience. So mental flexibility, being able to take in several viewpoints or incorporate new information into your worldview. Attention span, focus, and incorporate multiple points of view. And if you can maintain a high resilience in all of those domains, you get to a state of what's called coherence, which I'll talk about more later, which is a very desirable state to be in. So not everybody has equal resilience in all of these domains. Some people have more resilience in one than another. Maybe some people are very good in physical resilience, not so good in emotional resilience. And it's probably because I didn't touch it for a while. Talking too much. So each domain affects another domain. So for example, you may feel low emotional resilience. You may feel overwhelmed by all the things that you have to do by tomorrow at 8 a.m. So that's an emotional drain. And then when you feel overwhelmed, that kind of filters into the mental domain too, because then once you're overwhelmed, you can't think clearly. You're making bad choices. And then that will go on to physical, because you feel drained, you feel overwhelmed, and that pain in the back of your neck has come back again. And then spiritual, maybe someone talks to you with a kind of different way of doing things, and that doesn't really fit in with your viewpoint, and so you don't tolerate them. So you can see they're all connected. And it's important to try and build up our resilience in all of these different areas. So here's an example of wasting emotional energy. So this is real data. This was a policeman actually off duty, and he was in the car with his wife. He was in the passenger seat, and he had a heart rate monitor on him. He's wearing a 24-hour Holter monitor because they wanted to measure heart rate throughout a 24-hour period in people in the police. So here he was quite happy. His heart rate was around about 60 beats per minute. And then his wife said something that got under his skin. And you can see in 5 minutes, his heart rate has gone up to 140, which is really high. And so it stays up there. So it stays up there for 15 minutes. And then they make up the argument, and his heart rate comes down, but it's still about 120, 110. So it's still much higher than it was. And it stays up there for the next half hour. So that's what happens. That's kind of wasting emotional energy. And hopefully, I'm going to give you a couple of tools tonight, so that using those tools, if you go up here, it's not going to stop your heart rate from going up when you get angry, but it will help bring it down much faster. So you won't be wasting emotional energy, and you won't be taxing your heart for another half an hour. It will come down much quicker. So we need an energy balance. Often we put out more energy than we have. So we have a certain supply of energy, and we kind of dissipate it. So how do you think you can build up your energy stores? Sleeping, yes, that's right. So you have to make sure you have enough sleep. So one way is plugging up the leaks, and I'll tell you about how you can plug up the leaks. But the other way is building up your energy stores by getting enough sleep. So I'm sure you've all heard of good stress, and you need a little bit of stress to get things done. So that deadline tomorrow is going to really motivate you to get that paper written or whatever. If you didn't have the deadline, then you wouldn't have the stress, and you would just put it off. So you do need some stress to get you going. So this is challenge level and effort. And so you can see at first, the more stress you have, or the more challenge, the better you do, the higher your performance. So embraces challenge and improves performance. And then you reach a plateau where you're doing really well, and you've just got enough motivation and stress to keep you going and keep you productive. But then it starts to get too much. Too many demands are being put on you. This is your hyper-reactive stage, and your performance is going down. And then finally, you get to emotional exhaustion. It's just too much. You just can't do anymore. You're not going to bother with that paper. You're going to leave university, that kind of thing. Whereas you can learn to keep your plateau period going longer and not get to that horrible stage of emotional exhaustion by regulating your energy, by making sure that you don't waste too much emotional energy and you can keep your stores built up. So what was the caption at the end of the movie? Did anyone catch that? You see the world through how you feel. So how did you feel the first time you saw that movie? Agitated. And how did you feel the second time you saw the movie? More relaxed. So that's kind of emotional soundtracks that we run through our minds. So, you know, sometimes things happen and you're in a pretty good mood and they don't really affect you badly. And other days, you're really angry. Maybe you had an argument with your husband or wife or partner or whatever, and then everything looks bad, even though it's pretty much the same as what happened the day before. So we really do see the world through how we feel. And it's easy, well, it's not easy, but you can learn how to adapt how you feel or modify how you feel so you see the world in a better viewpoint. So emotions are really important, and they, especially in physiology, emotions set off whole cascades of chemicals and hormones and neurotransmitters. So they're really affecting your body. And so if you can regulate your emotions, then you can help with your health, your physical health as well as emotional health. And we can think of depleting and renewing emotions. Depleting emotions are the ones that drain you. Can you think of an emotion like that? Anger. Another one? Worry, frustration. And then there are other emotions that really they make you refreshed and feel renewed. Can you think of one of those? Joy, yes. Or even just appreciation. So depleting emotions, fear, frustration, impatience, anger, they give you that toxic feeling that cause release of stress hormones like cortisol. And this can result in reduced muscle mass. So if you have chronically high levels of cortisol, the body is trying to get more glucose into the blood to give you more energy. And some of that glucose comes from muscles, so the muscle mass goes down. Brain cell death, impaired memory. You know, when you're stressed, you forget things. Like, why did I come into this room? Accelerated aging, impaired mental function, and diminished performance. So all of these are really problems, especially if you're a student. It would be great if you can focus more on renewing emotions than these depleting emotions that have these side effects. So renewing emotions, care, courage, tolerance, appreciation, they create neurochemicals that regenerate your system, repair the cells, and they increase longevity, increase resilience, improve memory, improve problem solving, improve intuition and creativity, and then improve job performance and achievement. And in fact, the Institute of HeartMath, they have worked with students, both high school students and college students, and they have tested them, they've trained them for several weeks in these techniques that help them self-regulate, and they found significant improvements in their test scores. So depletion to renewal. So we can think of emotions as affecting the hormonal system. So we already talked about depleting emotions that cause production of cortisol. And then renewing emotions, they tend to produce DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone, which is, I'm sure you've heard of DHEA. You can go to not Wild Oats, what's it called now? Whole Foods. Wild Foods. and get DHEA supplement, but actually your body makes it, so you don't need to buy it. And it helps with cellular renewal and repair. So emotions can produce cortisol, or they can produce DHEA, and then also emotions are associated with energy, or with more energy or less energy. So some emotions are associated with high sympathetic stimulation. So in the autonomic nervous system that governs your heart and other organs, it's got two components. Sympathetic increases your heart rate, gives you energy like an accelerator, whereas the parasympathetic, or rest and digest, that tends to reduce heart rate and put you into a more relaxed state, like a brake. So you think of a car, an accelerator and a brake. Accelerator is sympathetic, the brake is parasympathetic. So you have high energy emotions and low energy emotions. And so we can think of emotions as being in one of these four quadrants. So can you think of an emotion that is high energy and depleting? Anger. What about an emotion that is low energy and depleting? Sadness, yeah. High energy and renewing. Excitement and joy. And low energy and renewing. Contentment, yeah. So that's an interesting, you can just draw one of these yourself, and every now and then you can think, okay, where am I on the grid? So that really helps in self-awareness. And do you want to be on the left side or the right side? You're much better off being on the right side. Obviously, sometimes you're on the left side. I had a friend, and she had to put her horse down today, so of course she's right here, and that's terrible. But resilience is bouncing back. So obviously, you go into these down periods, but if you have more resilience, you recover more quickly. You still remember your loved, lost ones, but you can recover more quickly. So one of the most important steps in being able to stop energy drains and increase resilience is to identify unnecessary energy expenditures. And that's getting angry at stupid things, like getting angry at the receptionist at the doctor's when they can't see you for 2.5 months, and shouting at the receptionist, because after that, who is drained? You are. So this is the first technique that I would like to do with you. It's really simple, but because it's simple, you can just grab it when you're really stressed and do it. And it's called heart-focused breathing. So the first step in shifting to a more coherent state, it's the first step in shifting to this coherent state. And coherence, I mentioned this before, coherence means that you're both relaxed and alert. So you're not relaxed like you are after you've drunk 2 glasses of wine or a 6-pack. It's relaxed but alert. And remember that pilot who brought, I think his nickname was Sully. He landed a plane in the Hudson. In order to do that, he had to be coherent. There is absolutely no other way he could have done that. He had his wits about him, but he was still relaxed enough to be able to function at that high degree. And then it helps you maintain your composure in challenging situations, as I just mentioned. So the first thing you do is focus your attention in the area of your heart. So just kind of do it now, just focus your attention. And I suggest those of you with crossed legs, put both feet on the ground, because that helps you get more balanced. So focus on your area of the heart, and then imagine your breath is flowing into and out of your chest area. And breathe a little slower and deeper than usual. So I find what works best is if you count slowly to 5 as you breathe in, and slowly to 5 as you breathe out. So you imagine the breath's going into your heart, and then radiating out of your heart. And as you breathe out, also consciously relax every muscle. So your fingers, your toes, your cheeks, your tongue. And if your mind wanders, just focus back on the breathing. So how did that feel?
Relaxing.
Yeah, and it's something you can do anywhere. You don't have to go to a meditation room and stay there for an hour. You can just do it just for a few minutes in a challenging situation, and it will help bring you back to balance. Actually, sympathetic, parasympathetic balance, that relaxed alertness, that coherence. So that's an easy thing that you can do. And I suggest that you practice it daily. Not just when you're stressed. Maybe you have, find a time when you can do it, like, okay, I'm brushing my teeth now. After I brush my teeth, I'm just going to practice coherence for a few minutes. And in just a few minutes a day will bring that slow breathing to your normal, that would become your normal way of breathing without you even thinking about it. After you've practiced daily for about 4 weeks, that will become your normal way of breathing. So it's something to think about that will really benefit you. And so what happens to your heart when you're doing this? So this here is, this represents respiration. So this is someone breathing, and each hump is one breath. And this pink line is their heart rate. And you can see their heart rate isn't just staying level. It's varying a lot. And that is very healthy. And the variation of your heart rate as you breathe is called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. And that might seem like a disorder or a disease. It's a kind of weird name. But actually, respiratory sinus arrhythmia is a good thing. It means that your heart rate is varying with each breath. The more your heart rate varies, the more adaptable it is, the more it can adjust to changes in your second-by-second needs. So it's good to have a heart rate that can change very quickly. People who are stressed don't show much heart rate variability. It stays pretty much, maybe it varies by like 2 or 3 beats per minute. And so their heart doesn't adjust. So when they get angry, their heart takes a long time to come back down again in their heart rate. Whereas someone with a high heart rate variability, the heart is used to changing, and so it will come down again quickly after you've released the anger. So you can see 2 things. First of all, you can see the rhythm here with the heart rate up and down, and each one is in sync with the breath. So as you breathe in, the heart rate goes up. As you breathe out, the heart rate goes down. And that's because as you breathe in, the heart beats faster because the sympathetic nerves are activated, the accelerator. And as you breathe out, the heart beats slower because the parasympathetic nerves are activated, or the brake. So this gives you an instant sympathetic parasympathetic balance in time you're breathing. Sympathetic parasympathetic, sympathetic parasympathetic. So they're talking to each other. You don't have one overwhelming the other. So if you're angry all the time, the sympathetic will be on all the time. If you are feeling really lazy and just don't want to do anything, the parasympathetic would be on all the time. But you can get more done if you have this this coordination between sympathetic and parasympathetic, which you can get really easily just by breathing a little bit more deeply and slowly and focusing on your breath. This is just to show sympathetic and parasympathetic. So sympathetic is what is activated in the fight or flight response, and it's going to dilate your pupils so you can see better. It's going to stop saliva secretion. It's going to make your airways bigger so that you can get more air, oxygen, speed up the heartbeat, secrete adrenaline or epinephrine, and decrease gut secretions, because when you're in fight or flight, you're not interested in digesting food. Whereas parasympathetic constricts the pupils. It increases saliva secretion because it's associated with eating and digesting, so you need more saliva. Constricts the airways a little bit, slows down the heartbeat, and increases gut secretion. And I'm just going to go through this. This is the cardiovascular system. And briefly, all I want to show you is that when you breathe in, when you breathe in, your chest expands. And so you have less pressure in there. So you have a big vein called the vena cava, which brings blood back from the circulation to your heart. So this is taking it back to the heart. And the vena cava is like a floppy tube. It's not like a pipe. It's like a floppy tube, like an IV bag that is not filled up. And it can be easily compressed. But when you take a big deep breath, it expands your chest and the vena cava opens up. So that means that more blood will get back to the heart. So taking that big deep breath, more blood's going back to the heart. And that chamber in the heart, the right atrium, will be full of blood, extra blood that's gone in there. It will stretch. And there are stretch receptors in there that detect this increase in blood, this stretching, and they signal to the sympathetic nervous system to increase heart rate, because this extra blood needs to be pumped to the lungs where it can get oxygen. So that you've taken that big deep breath, you've got lots of air in the lungs because you're just taking that breath, and you've also got extra blood going back to the heart and being pumped into the lungs. So that's going to oxygenate your blood better because you have more blood going into the lungs when they're full. And that's an advantage of coherence. It's going to give you more oxygen in your blood. Then as you breathe out, the chest kind of collapses, the vena cava collapses, there's less blood going back to the heart. It's not going to beat so fast because there's less blood, and so heart rate will go down. So that's why as you breathe in, heart rate goes up, and as you breathe out, heart rate goes down. And this synchronicity between the breathing and the heart rhythm is going to increase the ability of your heart to oxygenate your blood. And also it helps the heart work more efficiently, so it has less work to do, or it uses less energy to do a certain job. So that's good for sport. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about coherence. Remember, coherence is when your systems are working together so that you have the respiration and the heart rhythm working together. And all your other systems as well, the immune system, the hormonal system, they're all working in sync. And so that is coherence. And coherence occurs when you have a balance between sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves. And it will give you optimal functioning. So you can think of it like rowers. They have to be in time in order for you to win the rowing race. And it's the same with the body. If all your systems are working together with each other, then you'll have an optimal performance, which will be really good for sport and just your health in general. So heart communicates with the brain in 4 ways. Nervous system, pulse wave, so your heart, as your heart beats, expels blood into the main artery, the aorta, and so every time the heart beats, the aorta swells with extra blood, and then when the heart is resting, it collapses a little bit. So this is the wave, the pressure wave that goes through all the arteries in the body. Then hormones, the heart communicates with the brain through release of hormones, and also energetic communication, electromagnetic fields. The heart has an electromagnetic field, obviously because the heart is an electrical organ. Every time the heart beats, there's a current. If you have a current, you have an electromagnetic field. And the field of the heart has been measured. You need a very expensive machine to measure it, but it has been measured, and it can extend out as far as maybe 8 or 9 feet. So that your electromagnetic field of your heart is interacting with the person next to you right now. And the electromagnetic field isn't static, it's continually vibrating. And you can control those frequencies of vibration. The brain also has an electromagnetic field, but it's much, much smaller. So this is an EKG or an ECG. So every spike represents a contraction of the heart. And this is the time interval between contractions. And you can see that it's not equal. It varies. And that's heart rate variability, as I was talking about before. It's better if you have a heart rate that changes because it means the heart is more able to adapt. So high heart rate variability is good. And if you record over like a minute, you can see that patterns emerge. So here, there's not much space between each beat. That means that there is little time between each beat. That means the heart rate is increasing. Here, you can see there's wider space. There's more time between each beat, so the heart rate is going down. So you can get this rhythm coming out. And emotions affect these rhythms. Emotions affect heart rate variability. So here is, this is heart rate changing with time. And here's another one. And these came from the same person under different emotional states. So what kind of emotional state do you think this person was in? What emotion do you think they were feeling? Just guess. Frustration. Frustration, yes. You can see it's just going all over the place. They have quite a high heart rate variability, but there's no real pattern to it. What emotion do you think this one was feeling?
Contentment.
What was that?
Contentment.
It could be, but it wasn't.
Trying to calm down.
Well, this one was appreciation. Just, you can appreciate anything. In fact, I had a client who was depressed, and I managed to get her to appreciate. She looked out the window and she appreciated the shape of a leaf on a tree. So you can appreciate anything. And so if your heart is sending this signal to your brain, that's the kind of signal that impairs performance, impairs your cognitive abilities, and also impairs your emotional balance. Whereas this one, when the heart sends that signal to the brain, it's been shown that it really helps the thalamus do its job and organize all the different areas of the brain. So this is associated with improved performance and memory. And you get that, as I said before, you get that by doing what you just did, breathing deeply and slowly. So heart rate variability is highest when we're young, and then it decreases as we get older, which is kind of sad, but it's not inevitable, because if you practice, as I said, just practice a few minutes a day, you can keep your heart rate variability as high as a young person, no trouble. Below normal heart rate variability for your particular age is a strong predictor of future health problems. So that's another reason for trying to increase your heart rate variability just by that breathing. It's an important indicator of your ability to handle stress, and also higher levels of heart rate variability are associated with better performance. So just to show age, this is someone who's 10, and these are the same scale, heart rate, against time in seconds, so this is 3 minutes. And you can see this one was 10 beats per minute between the minimum and the maximum. And this is someone 63, 2. But you can, even if you're 63, you can get this up to 20, no trouble. So incoherence inhibits brain function, and coherence facilitates brain function. So it's much harder to change your brain function just by focusing on your brain. It's really easy to change your brain function by focusing on your heart and your breathing. It's just so much easier to switch from that to that. And by changing the information the heart is sending to the brain, you can change your abilities. So we're kind of short on time, so I'm going to skip that one. But if you practice coherence, it improves your performance, reduces fatigue, improves your relationships. And I'm going to give you another tool now called quick coherence. And this starts off the same as the breathing one. So focus your attention in the area of your heart. So let's all do it. So uncross your legs, focus the attention on the area of your heart. And just as before, imagine the breaths going into your heart as you breathe in, and out of your heart as you breathe out. And count slowly to 5 as you breathe in, and slowly to 5 as you breathe out. And just do that for like 10 or 20 seconds. And now I want you to make an attempt to experience a renewing or regenerative feeling, such as appreciation, or maybe care for someone or something in your life. So for example, what I do, and it works every time, I imagine I'm stroking my cat, because that brings me pleasure, and it's really simple. And I just imagine his fur, how soft it is, how warm it is, how he purrs, and that's enough to really get me into that coherent state. So think of something really simple that gives you pleasure and relive it. But still add that to the breathing. And if you lose your focus on your pleasurable sensation, just go back to the breathing. So how did that feel? Did it feel any different from just the breathing? Or did it feel the same? Or did it feel more difficult?
It felt different.
Different. How did it feel different?
It felt exciting.
You felt better. Okay. Did anyone have a problem with it? Did everyone manage to find something that gave them a good feeling? because it's important that you have a good feeling. It's not thinking. Once you start thinking about it too hard, you lose it. It's just important to focus on sensing and feeling. And what I find in my practice is that some people are really, really good at the breathing, and then they have trouble with the emotional part, with the pleasurable sensation. And other people are really stressed out trying to breathe properly, but they can really do the emotional part. And then most people find that the combination, when they practice a bit, the combination gives them the best results. So you can just kind of practice and you can find out what kind of person you are, what is best for you. And in fact, next week, and there are handouts at the back, I'll be doing a practical resilience class, and it's limited to 20 people. And you can use biofeedback devices to practice these techniques and find out what strategies work best for you. So if you're interested, and it's free, you can sign on at the back. So quick coherence is heart-focused breathing and then activate a positive feeling. Okay, I talked about biofeedback devices, so they will be available next week. And the one I use the most is called the M-Wave 2. It's portable, so you can just carry it around with you. And when you are coherent, the light goes green. And when you're not coherent, it's red. And when you're in the middle, it's blue. So it's really simple. So you can do experiments on yourself. So you can just do your normal things and you can find out, okay, when I do this, am I coherent? Or you can maybe say, okay, I've got something difficult coming up. I need to build up my energy, build up my resilience. And that's what this does. It builds up your resilience, blocks those energy leaks. And you can do your breathing or your pleasurable sensation, quick coherence, for a few minutes, and you have your device and you can see when it goes green that you've got there. So it's a really nice combination of technology and then the biofeedback, the physiology. Then you can plug it into the computer and it downloads all the stuff that you recorded during the day. So that's just a bigger version of it. And this is the kind of output that you'll see. So here's someone who was not coherent, and then they did the coherence breathing. And it tells you what percentage of the recording time you were not coherent, in the middle, or coherent. So you can see 45%, 10%, 45%. And you can get them for iPhones as well and iPads. So I'd like to end with the most exciting part of this. And we've been talking about you. And that's why you came, because you're interested in you and you want to reduce your stress. But this not only affects you, it affects other people as well. I already said that your heart field is so big that it affects other people's fields. So this is a picture of the field. And this field is changing in strength. You see the like sine wave that you saw. When you do the breathing, your heart rate goes up and down with your breathing. Not only is your heart rate going up and down with your breathing, when your heart rate goes up, your field is getting stronger. When your heart rate goes down, your field is getting weaker. So not only is your heart rate going up and down that you can see on the computer or the sensor, but your whole field is getting strong and weak, strong and weak, strong and weak. And I've measured this. I went to the Scripps Institute in San Diego, where they have one of these very expensive machines that can measure the field. And I measured it, and I saw that the movement of the field, the changes in strength of the field, exactly correlated with what we were measuring on the heart rate variability. So that's amazing that what's going on inside your heart is not just staying in your body, it's going out, it's communicating with everyone else. And there you can see two people, and one person's field is going to impinge on the other person's field. Just like when you're at elementary school and you played with iron filings and magnets, and you have a magnet, and then you put iron filings around and you can see all the lines, and then you bring another magnet to it and all the lines change. Well, that's what's happening when you interact with other people. And if you can become coherent and your field is getting stronger and weaker in this particular rhythm, which is about 6 cycles per minute, then your field can actually make another person's field coherent. And that has been shown experimentally. So this was done by the Institute of HeartMath. They had 10 groups of 4 people. 3 of the people had been trained to become coherent. They knew how to do it. The other person didn't have a clue. And they were all hooked up to monitors. And the 3 people were told, okay, I want you all to become coherent. So they became coherent. And then they said, okay, just don't become coherent. So they had periods when they were coherent and periods when they were not. And guess what? The one who didn't know anything was just being measured. His coherence and non-coherence matched the times of the other people. So there is some proof, not much, this is a new area, but there is some evidence that it really does work. And I'll finish off with work with horses. So not only do you have heart fields talking to each other between people, but between species. So we did an experiment, and I'm still involved in this research. We're measuring heart rate variability of horses and humans as they interact with each other. And this lady here, her name is Marcia Drozdoff. She's a clinical social worker here at Banner UMC, and she leads a group of Reiki practitioners who help cancer patients and their families. So she was in the experiment, and here she is interacting with the horse. And we're measuring both of their heart rate variabilities, and I'll show you the results. And I'm showing you the best. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm showing you the best here. So there was a high correlation between Marcia and the horse heart rate variability. And Marcia is an experienced energy healer. This is what we saw. This is heart rate variability of Marcia. So this is time, this is heart rate. Look at the pattern of the horse. I mean, even just looking at it, you can see that the similarity in the pattern here. And there's a mathematical process called fast Fourier analysis or correlation, cross-correlation. And so we could put this in a computer program and we could see how alike are these recordings. And what we found was that there was a 0.6 or a 60% similarity between those 2 curves, which is really high. So if it was just taking random data, it would be about 0.1 or 0.15 maximum, but this is 0.6. And the other thing we found out was, in this case, the human, Marcia's heart rate change was leading the horse. In other people, we found the opposite. We found the horse was leading the human. But I think because Marcia is a very experienced energy healer, it was switched. She was actually affecting the horse. Okay, so I would like some time for questions. So this is the summary. So the display of heart rate variability it kind of provides a window into your body to show you what your stress level is at any moment. You can measure your heart rate variability and see, do you have that nice sine wave, or do you have that raggedy old random looking curve? Use of slow deep breathing and positive feeling while you're kind of using biofeedback, while you're looking through that window, can reduce your stress level and make you coherent. And when your heart produces a coherent signal, all the cells in your body benefit, as do the people around you. So thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
So for the second exercise, the quick coherence, you have the first activity that you focus on your breathing, and the second you focus on something that brings you pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Does that activity have to be something that is kind of low stress, kind of low energy, like you focused on your cat? I focused on running. I would think that the level of activity would matter, does it?
No, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I focus on skiing. It's just something that that gives you pleasure. Yeah. Good question.
I have a question. I don't know whether I'm ever coherent, but I do notice when you're a swimmer. I'm a swimmer. And when I swim, I feel, that would be a word. I feel coherent. I solve a lot of problems kind of naturally. They just sort of flow, and my whole approach to problem solving seems so different in that state. Do you think that I'm naturally doing that? Because in swimming, I have to breathe deeply, and I do freestyle every third stroke. I have to hold breath and take a big breath and so forth. Do you think that's sort of a natural way of doing it?
I do, yes. Yeah, and so the breathing and the pleasurable sensation, that's one reproducible way of doing it. But swimming, I'm pretty sure that you're coherent when you swim because you are regulating your breathing, you're in a rhythm. Right. Yeah, for sure. There are certain types of music that will make you more coherent. There are certain types of music that will not make you coherent. But in fact, I wore that M-wave thing when I was riding my horse, and because I was just curious. And so I was just walking, then I trotted, and then I cantered. And when I went into the canter, which is a beautiful, flowing, fast movement, I went straight into the green without even trying. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just there. That's why it would be good, for people to get those devices to play with and find out, hey, what makes me in this great coherent state naturally?
Yeah, right. Interesting. Other questions? Yes. Bring a microphone.
Do you know if there is any technique to be coherent just before sleeping? Because many times I have exams or something and I go to sleep and I feel stressed, and when I wake up I feel that I didn't sleep.
Yeah, this is very useful for insomnia. Yeah, just do either of those exercises and see which one works best for you. Just the breathing, the heart focused breathing, or do the quick coherence, bringing in the pleasurable sensation as well. And I didn't talk about Reiki because that's a whole different lecture, but Reiki or energy healing, that is also really good for insomnia. So if you talk to me afterwards, I could give you some more information about that. In fact, I have a CD. It's called Reiki Relaxation, and I don't know if the woman who made it meant this to be, but I call it the sleep aid because I've never actually heard the whole CD because it puts me to sleep.
Other questions? Yes.
What about working in a puzzle? Because working in a puzzle sometimes seems to be a very peaceful type of activity.
I think it depends on the person. I mean, some people might find puzzles really frustrating, but other people, they get into a rhythm and maybe they would become coherent. It really depends on you. So if you find it a pleasurable experience that is calming, then I would say that's probably going to work for you.
That is something that I do find really interesting, that somebody who is very much of a scientist is also very much into Reiki. Do you think that there is a connection? Like, are you manipulating the EMF field? Is that how you would envision it?
That's my favorite theory. So no one knows for sure how Reiki works, but that's the thing that makes the most sense to me. We have our heart field. We know for sure that is true. We're not making that up. And Reiki does appear to be some kind of electromagnetic energy. And it makes sense that that would manipulate or change the electromagnetic field. And if you're changing the field, you're changing the currents in your body. If you're changing the currents in the body, you'll change the physiology. So yeah, that makes the most sense to me right now.
Did anyone ever measure that at Scripps?
I tried to do that. In fact, I have a paper, which unfortunately the results were negative. We didn't find that Reiki altered the... we had people who would... First of all, we measured them when they were just sitting there, and then we had them do Reiki on themselves and we measured them. We also had people who hadn't done Reiki, we measured them, and then we taught them how to do Reiki and put them back in there and measured them again. We did not find any change in the field when they did Reiki. But one explanation could be that the device is in a room that is electromagnetically shielded, because they don't... This is normally used to get images of people's brains and hearts. It's a very non-invasive way of getting images of brains and hearts. And they don't want excess noise from the outside, excess electromagnetic noise coming in and ruining their measurements. So it's shielded. But I think that maybe with Reiki, you need to be connected with the environment. I think you need to be connected with the earth, with nature. And perhaps we broke that connection by doing the experiments in that shielded room, and that's why our results were negative. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that maybe it has nothing to do with it.